If one more person asked me when I was going to settle down, I was going to brain them with the nearest champagne bottle. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and fake smiles. Karachi's elite floated around in designer gowns and tailored suits, pretending the city wasn't built on blood and secrets. I adjusted the strap of my silk dress, palm brushing reflexively over my still flat stomach. Not showing yet. Thank God. You look tense, Miss Hale, my colleague Miriam murmured, nudging me with her elbow. Smile. This charity gala is for the firm. Networking, remember? I am smiling, I said through my teeth. She snorted. I hate everyone's smile doesn't count. I forced my lips to soften, scanning the crowd. Politicians, industrialists, 2 TV actors, 1 tech billionaire. And somewhere, keeping his distance like always, the ghost in the room. My husband. I didn't have to see him to know he was here. The air changed when he was near, like static before a storm. I knew he'd be watching, evaluating threats, counting exits, protecting me. He'd kill me if he knew I'd refused the bulletproof underdress he had tailored for me. I was still thinking about that and the small, impossible heartbeat I'd heard in the clinic that morning when a familiar laugh sliced through the music. That laugh. My spine went rigid. For a second, the ballroom blurred, replaced by another night 2 years ago. Cheap cologne, slammed doors, his hand wrapped around my wrist too tightly, his voice in my ear. You're nothing without me, Arya. I swallowed and turned toward the sound. Of course it was him. Ian looked almost exactly the same. Expensive haircut, arrogant posture, that smirk like he owned the world and everyone in it. Only his suit was better now. Dark blue, tailored to scream success. A woman clung to his arm, glittering in sequins and insecurity. Please don't see me. Please don't. His gaze swept the room, bored. Then he froze. Our eyes met. The floor might as well have dropped out underneath me. I didn't move, didn't breathe. He blinked, like he couldn't quite place me. Then slow recognition lit his face. No way, he breathed, already striding toward me. Arya? Miriam's fingers tightened on my forearm. That your ex? She whispered. Unfortunately, I muttered. Go find Ahmed. Now. Arya. Please. She hesitated, then disappeared into the crowd. I smoothed my dress with hands that didn't feel like mine. My heart hammered so loud I could barely hear the music. I could feel eyes on me from somewhere darker, higher. Balcony? Corner? He's seen him too, I thought. Xavier knows. Wow. Ian stopped in front of me, giving me an obvious head-to-toe scan. Look at you. I almost didn't recognize you. Hi, Ian. My voice sounded calm, polite. Corporate lawyer voice. The one that had negotiated million-rupee deals and made old men sweat. It's been a while. 3 years, he said easily. Since you ghosted me. I didn't remind him he'd been the one who'd thrown my suitcase into the hallway and told me to get out. That he'd smashed my phone when I said I was leaving. That I'd left with bruises under my sleeves and a promise to myself to never let anyone own me again. He leaned in, breath warm with whiskey. You're at Con and Hale now, right? Big girl job, fancy gala. Impressive. I'm a partner, I said. But sure, impressive works. He laughed too loud. People glanced over. A partner. Mashallah. He clapped his hands once, as if I were a performing seal. So career woman. I always told you you'd be good at paperwork. I gripped my clutch tighter so I wouldn't punch him. He tilted his head, eyes roaming the crowded ballroom and landing back on me. A glint of mean amusement sparked. I knew that look. He'd found a new angle to hurt. So he drawled, voice just a little raised. Still single, right? The question hit me like a slap. A couple standing nearby glanced over. A woman's brows shot up. Heat flooded my face. For a heartbeat. All the air was sucked out of my lungs. He had no idea. He had no idea that there was a platinum band hidden beneath the delicate diamond bracelet on my wrist. That every one of the security staff blended into the crowd tonight answered to my husband, not the hotel. That somewhere in the shadows, a man feared by half the city was watching this conversation with black, assessing eyes. He had no idea that I was carrying that man's child. I kept my smile fixed. You always did love public scenes, Ian. Oh, come on. He grinned, nudging my arm like we were old friends. Relax. I'm just teasing. I mean, I don't see a ring. And I heard from Sarah you're married to your job. He made quotes in the air, lips curling. Married to your job. Right. I could practically feel Xavier's disapproval from across the room. He hated when I wore my ring in public. Too risky, too traceable. Our marriage license was buried in an offshore vault, and 3 men who'd processed it were dead for even knowing his real surname. I stroked my thumb over the bracelet, feeling the cool metal press into the hidden band underneath. I'm doing fine, I said evenly. And you? I heard you're in real estate now. Development, he corrected, puffing up. Big projects. Big money. He jerked his chin toward the woman on his arm, who'd been busy pretending she wasn't listening. This is Maham. Poor girl. She gave me a nervous smile. Her lipstick was slightly smudged, like he'd kissed her too hard in the car. I wondered if she knew how quickly his charm turned to cruelty when someone stopped feeding his ego. Nice to meet you, I said gently. I slung an arm around her waist, possessively. We're engaged. Of course you are. Congratulations, I said. He flashed his teeth. You'll come to the wedding, nah? If you're not too busy in your corner office. If you don't get lonely. His gaze flicked pointedly to my left hand again. Still single suits you though. At least you don't have to answer to anyone. The irony almost made me laugh. If only you knew. I opened my mouth to respond, but a server stumbled between us with a tray of desserts, nearly spilling chocolate tarts onto Ian's shoes. He cursed and shoved the boy away. The server muttered a quick apology and hurried off, eyes wide. My skin prickled. That wasn't clumsiness. The boy's hand had brushed my wrist deliberately as he passed. I glanced down. A folded cocktail napkin now sat inside the curve of my palm. Act natural. I lifted a champagne flute, pretending to sip. When I lowered the glass, I let my fingers unfold the napkin just enough to read the tiny, blocky handwriting inside. Balcony. 2 minutes. Don't make a scene. My heart stuttered. Xavier. Arya. Ian was watching me with irritation. You spaced out. Thinking about work. Thinking about dessert, I lied smoothly. If you'll excuse me, I promised the managing partner I'd circulate. He rolled his eyes. Still the same. Work, work, work. I smiled. You have no idea how much that's changed. He frowned, confused, but I was already turning away. I could feel his gaze on my back, hot with the frustration of not getting the last word. I weaved through the crowd, smile plastered on, nodding at judges and clients and one particularly nosy auntie. My pulse rattled against my throat as I reached the grand staircase. Above, the balcony loomed, a semicircle of marble and shadows, overlooking the glittering ballroom. A place for donors to smoke, politicians to make quiet deals, lovers to steal a moment. My heels clicked on the steps, blending into the music below. At the top, the air was cooler, quieter. The noise of the gala was softened by distance, like a TV in another room. Only one figure stood near the railing, back turned, broad shoulders in an impeccably cut black suit. Even from behind, I knew him. I always knew him. A softness eased something tight in my chest. My fingers curled around the napkin, crushing it. You sent a waiter to scold me? I said, my voice coming out half breathless, half amused. Overkill, don't you think? Xavier Moretti turned. Most people only saw the danger first. The predator. The man who'd built an empire on fear and precision, whose name was never spoken above a whisper. The man newspapers called Kingpin, whose operations stretched from Karachi to Dubai to London. But I'd seen him barefaced at dawn, hair a mess, murmuring Italian endearments into my neck because English wasn't enough. I'd seen his hands shake after a particularly bloody night. I'd seen him kneel in front of me yesterday, dark eyes uncharacteristically vulnerable as he'd asked, "Are you sure you want to keep it?" With my life? With my enemies? So I didn't see the king when he turned. I saw my husband. His gaze raked over me, cool and assessing, cataloging every line of my body. Only the faint tightening around his eyes betrayed that he'd heard every word downstairs. "If that idiot had touched you 1 second longer," he said softly, accent curling around the words, "I would have broken his jaw in the middle of your firm's charity event." Heat flashed through me, part fear, part something darker. Then it's good you stayed up here, I replied, matching his lightness. PR nightmare, remember? He stepped closer, the faintest hint of cologne wrapping around me. Smoke and citrus and something uniquely him. His fingers brushed my wrist, turning my palm upward. The ruined napkin crinkled between us. You shouldn't have gone near him. His voice was low now, edged with steel. You know who he works for? My stomach dropped. He's just my ex, Xavier. A pathetic one. He works in development. The look he gave me made my skin go cold. You're just ex, he said quietly, has been laundering money for one of the few men in this city stupid enough to declare war on me. My breath caught. Downstairs, laughter erupted at some joke. A glass clinked. I stared at my husband, at the man I loved, at the man whose baby I was carrying, and felt the ballroom tilt. War. And I was standing in the center of it. Chunked to the air. I don't understand, I said, even though my brain was already racing ahead. Connecting names, companies, whispers I'd overheard at the firm. Ian, he can barely file his taxes. We were in the car now, the city lights streaking past in neon blurs. The gala was still in full swing behind us, but Xavier hadn't given me a choice. The moment he'd said the word war, his hand had closed around mine and he'd steered me out a side exit, down a service corridor, into a waiting SUV. Now, bulletproof glass separated us from Karachi's humid night. One of his men, Rafi, drove in silence. Another, Idris, sat in the front seat, eyes scanning the streets. Xavier's attention, however, was fully on me. Your ex, he said, the word dripping disdain, recently became very useful to a man named Raymond Faisal. I knew that name. Everyone in corporate law did. Tech tycoon, philanthropist, charming face on magazine covers. But the rumor said his startup capital had come from something far uglier than code. We have reason to believe Faisal wants what's mine, Xavier continued. Territory, contacts, people. You know how this works. I did. More than I like to admit. You've known this for how long? I demanded. And you didn't tell me? I didn't know, he snapped, then reined it in, jaw flexing. Not that it was this man. We've been watching Faisal's offshore accounts, but the shell companies. He trailed off, studying me. What? I asked. His mouth curved mirthlessly. You're going to be smug when you hear this. Try me. One of the shell companies laundering his money shares a director with the project your ex is fronting. He held my gaze. You flagged it last month. At your firm. Oh, my mind flashed back to my office, spreadsheets glowing on my monitor. Late nights with coffee gone cold, going over contracts with red pen. I'd muttered to Miriam that some of the numbers on the Faisal Luxury Apartments deal didn't line up, but Mr. Khan, senior partner, had waved it off as creative accounting. I'd highlighted a name anyway. A minor director. A holding company in Dubai I couldn't quite trace. Veritas Management. I thought it was nothing, I said slowly. I was tired. I didn't have access to all the documents. And I didn't know it connected to you. His eyes softened just a fraction. You saw it before some of my best people did. Of course you did. You see patterns where other people see paperwork. I swallowed, a strange twist of pride and fear curling in my chest. So now what? Faisal's using Ian to move money, laundering it through land deals. And because Ian hates you by association, he'll happily. He doesn't even know whose money he's washing, Xavier cut in. Pawns rarely do. Pawns. A shiver ran down my spine. For a second, I was back in that tiny flat, Ian's fingers digging into my skin as he snarled that I was nothing, that nobody else would ever want me, that he owned me. No more, I thought, pressing my palm subconsciously to my lower belly. Not anymore. Then why did you drag me out of the gala? I asked. If Ian's just a pawn, why do I suddenly feel like the board? His gaze dropped to my hand. I followed it, throat tightening as I realized what I'd done. My fingers were curled protectively over my stomach, as if I could shield the tiny secret inside with skin and bone. The car felt too small then. Too tight. My pulse roared in my ears. We hadn't talked about it properly since the clinic. I'd found out by accident, tired and nauseous. I'd gone in for what I'd thought was stress. The doctor had smiled gently and turned the screen to show me a blinking dot. A heartbeat. I hadn't told him over the phone. I couldn't. I'd gone home, knuckles white on the steering wheel, rehearsing the words. I'm pregnant. He'd been in his office when I arrived, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie discarded. Papers and maps spread on the desk, a gun beside his coffee. For a long moment, I just watched him, my heart in my throat. Aria, he'd said, looking up. You're home early. Are you? Pregnant, I blurted. The word had hung between us, fragile and heavy. He'd stared at me like I'd just told him the sun had come down to sit in our living room. Then he'd moved, so fast I'd barely seen it, and suddenly his hands were on my face, his forehead pressed to mine. Are you sure? He'd asked hoarsely. Is it? I'd smacked his shoulder, tears burning. Obviously it's yours, you idiot. He'd laughed then, a raw, disbelieving sound. And then he'd sunk to his knees, his hands spreading over my abdomen with a reverence I'd never seen in him. Now, in the SUV, that same reverence was back, twisted with something harder. Because you are not just the board, he said quietly. You are the queen, and queens are targeted first. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself. Dramatic much. I'm serious, Aria. So am I. I turned my body fully toward him, letting my hand drop. You knew from the moment I became yours that people would use me against you. That's why we married in secret. Why my ring is hidden. Why you keep your world and mine separate. It's not enough anymore. His voice turned rough. Not if Faisal is foolish enough to come after me through you. Not if your ex is already in his pocket. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath hitched irrationally. He saw it and gave a faint huff of amusement. Relax. I'm not proposing again. Thank God, I muttered. You were insufferable the first time. He flipped the box open. Nestled inside was a slim, diamond-studded bracelet. That's not mine, I said slowly. It is now. He lifted it, the gems catching the streetlights. Turn your wrist. I did, frowning. Xavier, we discussed this. No obvious gifts. People notice. That's the point, he murmured, fastening it over my pulse. They'll notice this. They'll see something expensive and pretty and assume it's just another toy your rich clients gave you. Nobody will see the band underneath if you keep it there. His fingers lingered. The metal of my wedding ring was cool against my skin, hidden beneath the bracelet. I flexed my hand, feeling their combined weight. Marriage and war locked together. What's the real point? I asked. He met my eyes. Pressed the last diamond 3 times quickly. Suspicion prickled. You turned my jewelry into a panic button. More of a summoning charm. He shrugged one shoulder. If you're in danger and you can't reach a phone, press it. GPS and a silent alarm go straight to me and my men. I stared at the bracelet, emotions tangling in my chest. Irritation at being managed. Fear at needing that level of protection. A dark, fierce gratitude that someone would move heaven and earth to reach me. You're ridiculous, I whispered. You're carrying my heir, he said softly. Ridiculous is the bare minimum. My throat went tight. Say it again, I blurted. He blinked. What? The thing you just said. I looked away, suddenly shy. About what I'm carrying. Understanding dawned in his eyes. The edges of his mouth softened, the ruthless Mafia boss receding, the man I'd married shining through. You're carrying my heir, he repeated, voice like velvet and steel. His hand slid over my stomach, warm and steady. Our child, the one nobody is going to take from us. A lump formed in my throat. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and unwelcome. Aria. He tipped my chin up. Look at me. I did. Faisal thinks he can use your ex to get to me, Xavier said. He thinks you're still that girl from 3 years ago. Scared. Alone. Still single. The words, thrown like a dagger in the ballroom, echoed again. Still single, right? No one, Xavier continued, darkness glittering in his gaze, insults my wife, threatens my family, and walks away breathing. We're going to end this. Cleanly. How? I whispered. He hesitated. I'm still deciding. That wasn't good enough. The fear that had been coiled in my chest since the gala suddenly straightened its spine, sharpening into something else. I thought of Ayan's mocking gaze, of Maham's nervous smile, of all the times I'd underestimated the danger until it crashed into my life. I thought of the tiny heartbeat I'd heard on that grainy screen. I want in, I said. Xavier stared. No. Yes. Absolutely not, Arya. This is my life too, I snapped. My ex. My firm. My city. You think I'm going to sit at home knitting booties while people I know are used as pawns in some war I don't understand? His eyes flashed. You will sit at home and stay safe because you're pregnant and you carry everything I've ever. He cut himself off, jaw locking. Everything I've ever wanted, I finished silently. I'm not stupid, I said more quietly. I know you can't keep me completely away from this. My worlds collided the moment I married you. They collided harder the second there was a baby involved. He flinched just a little. I leaned forward. So treat me like what I am. Your wife. Your partner. The one who saw patterns your men missed. Let me help. Silence. Raw feet turned into our street. The SUV slowed, the hulking shape of our building rising ahead, gray stone, tinted windows, security cameras tucked into every shadow. A fortress disguised as a luxury penthouse. Xavier's gaze didn't leave my face. You have a plan already, don't you? He said finally, resigned. A spark burned in my chest. Maybe, I said. Tell me. I took a breath. Everyone still thinks I'm single, I said slowly. That's our biggest weakness. And our biggest advantage. I swallowed. So why not let them? His brows drew together. I don't follow. A hiccup of nervous laughter escaped me. Let them think I'm vulnerable. Unprotected. Let Ian think he still has power over me. Let Faisal think I'm just a pretty, lonely lawyer who doesn't know she's walking through a battlefield. I met his gaze steadily. Use me as bait, I said. On our terms. The car rolled to a stop in front of the building. Idris opened his door, but Xavier didn't move. His fingers dug into the leather seat. I should lock you in a safe room for even suggesting that, he said. But you won't, I replied softly. Because you know I'm right. He stared at me. I watched the war in his eyes. The boss battling the husband, the instinct to shield clashing with the ruthless strategist constantly hunting for an edge. Finally, he exhaled a long, harsh sound. If we do this, he said, voice dangerous, we do it my way. Every second, every breath. You don't improvise. You don't play hero. You follow my instructions or I end it. Deal, I said, heart pounding. And Arya? Yes. If your ex so much as breathes wrong near you, he murmured, eyes turning to ice, I will show him what still single really feels like. Chunk 3, the invitation. 2 days later, my phone chimed with a message I'd been waiting for and dreading. Ian, saw you left early that night. Coffee. Would be nice to actually talk. I promise no more teasing winking face with tongue. I stared at the screen in my office, the glow of the text washing over my fingers. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city hummed under afternoon haze. Inside, my desk was a neat chaos of contracts, case files, and one very unassuming folder with a fake label. Inside that folder was war. I glanced up. Through the glass wall of my office, I could see Mr. Khan pacing his corner room. Phone pressed to his ear, legendary temper barely leashed. 2 junior associates argued quietly by the printer. The hum of the firm was everyday and ordinary. Nobody would have guessed that in the few hours since dawn, my husband's tech team had quietly pulled phone records, GPS logs, and financial transactions for every number Ian had called in the past month. Nobody would have guessed that the cleaning crew that serviced our building at night had also installed an extra security layer on my office door, keyed to my bracelet. Are you sure about this? Miriam asked, dropping into the chair opposite me without knocking. I locked my phone quickly, but she'd already seen the contact name light up. Apparently everyone knows my business, I muttered. Well, you keep making faces like someone texted you from the grave. She crossed her legs, eyeing me. So, are you going? I fiddled with my pen. Do you think I should? Honestly, she shrugged. He was toxic as hell and you owe him nothing. But if you need closure, or if you just want to show him you glowed up and his opinion means nothing, Main Hoon Tumhair Soth, I'll sit on the next table and judge him silently. A small laugh escaped me despite everything. I don't need closure. What I needed was evidence. Audio. Video. Proof that Ian's connection to Faisal wasn't just in bank transactions and shell companies, but in his own words. Enough to burn them legally and strategically. Then why go, she pressed. I met her gaze and, just for a second, let the mask slip. The fear, the exhaustion, the weight of secrets. You ever feel like your life is moving in two completely different directions at once? I asked quietly, like you're walking two tightrope side by side, and if you lose balance on one, you fall on both? She blinked, surprised by my seriousness. All the time, she said. That's just being a woman in this city. I huffed. True. I'm not the same person I was with him, I said. And I need him to know that. For me. Not a lie. Just not the whole truth. She studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. Then go. But meet him somewhere crowded. Public. And if he tries anything, I'll show him why your current best friend knows Krav Maga. Current best friend. Not your husband. Guilt pricked. She had no idea about the other life I was balancing. If she found out I'd married the city's Shadow King in secret, no. I couldn't think about that now. I'll be fine, I assured her. It's just coffee. Her eyes narrowed. Or something that says, I'm over you and my life is amazing now, okay? Is that a dress code? Obviously. She left, muttering about raiding my closet after work. As soon as the door clicked shut, I unlocked my phone and typed. Me. Sure. Coffee. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Quaid Street branch. Public enough? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Ian. Wow. Quick. Guess you did miss me, winking face. See you then. I resisted the urge to throw my phone. Instead, I picked up the unmarked landline on my desk, the one no one else in the firm knew about, and dialed the 3-digit number I'd been given. It rang once. More Eddie, a dry voice said. Hi, Rafi, I replied. Tell your boss the fish just bit. The cafe on Quaid Street was trendy enough that nobody looked twice at a lawyer meeting in X, but not so exclusive that security cameras couldn't be disguised as flower pots. I arrived 10 minutes early, dress chosen with surgical precision. Not too revealing, not too formal. Soft blue that made my skin look warmer, cut that skimmed my body without drawing attention to the subtle swell I was convinced only I could see. My bracelet glinted under the cafe's warm lights. The last diamond brushed my skin like a promise. Press 3 times if something goes wrong. I ordered a cappuccino and picked a table near the window. From here, I could see the street, the entrance, and the reflection of most of the room in the glass. Years of surviving Ian's moods and then navigating Xavier's world had taught me one thing. Never sit with your back to the door. My phone buzzed. Unknown. Table behind you, don't react. I didn't have to look to know who it was. A calm, familiar presence pressed against my senses like a warm hand on my spine. Moretti's men. I took a delicate sip of coffee, heart drumming. The bell over the door chimed. Arya. I gritted my teeth at the old nickname and turned, letting my face rearrange itself into mild, surprised pleasure. Ian, you're on time, I said. He spread his arms as if expecting a hug. I neatly sidestepped and gestured to the chair opposite mine. Sit. He smirked, unbothered. Still bossy, I see. If you only knew. He flopped into the chair, stretching his long legs, radiating the casual entitlement that had once sucked me in and now just made my skin crawl. You look good, he said, eyes lingering on my neckline. Even better than I remember. Guess single life suits you. I smiled sweetly. Guess so. A small black dot on the sugar jar by his elbow caught my eye. Tiny, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. One of Xavier's cameras. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, forcing myself to relax, to play the part. The scared, slightly flustered ex. The woman who'd run into him at a gala and couldn't quite let go of the past. So, I said, stirring my coffee, letting the spoon clink gently against the cup. Why did you really want to meet? He feigned offense. Can a man want to catch up with an old friend? You were never my friend, I said calmly. You were my boyfriend. Then my problem. Now you're my past. The flash of anger in his eyes was gratifying, but he swallowed it, painting his expression with wounded charm. I deserve that, he said. I was not the best version of myself back then. He leaned forward, dropping his voice like we were in a cheesy drama. People change, Arya. I lifted a brow. Do they? Yes. He flashed a rehearsed smile. Look at me. I've grown. Stable job. Engaged. No more messing around. Stable job. You're in development, right? I asked lightly. Miriam said you're working with Faisal Group now. That's impressive. His chest puffed at the name. Yeah, Mr. Faisal's a smart man. Visionary. He sees real potential in me. I took another sip, hiding my distaste. What do you actually do? He hesitated. Got you. Well, you know, he said dismissively. Numbers. Land deals. Making sure the money moves where it needs to. Nothing as glamorous as your big shot law career. Try me, I said, injecting just a hint of eager insecurity into my tone. I always liked how smart you were with money. Twist the knife. Feed the ego. He softened, predictably. Yeah, you did, didn't you? I nodded, lashes low. Back then, I thought you were just aimless. Angry. Maybe if things had been more stable, I let my voice trail off, a sigh ghosting over the rim of my cup. He bit. I was under pressure, he said quickly. Family issues. Debt. You never really understood what that's like. Debt. My pulse picked up. I'm trying to understand now, I said. I mean, you seem good. Like you've got everything you ever wanted. He preened, glancing reflexively at his watch. A very expensive one. Well, you know how it is, he said carelessly. You meet the right people, doors open. Faisal trusts me. How much? I asked, tilting my head. He chuckled. Enough that he runs shit through me now. I move money for him, keep it clean. Offshore accounts, shell companies, all that boring stuff you lawyers drool over. You arrogant, stupid man. I kept my face carefully fascinated. That sounds complicated. It is. He lowered his voice further. That's why he pays me so well. Because if the feds or your husband, he snorted, if I ever had one, came sniffing around, I'm the wall they hit first. Your husband. He doesn't even know he got closer to the truth than he thinks. Isn't that risky? I asked lightly. All his secrets in your head. What if someone pressured you? He scoffed. Nobody scares me. You would be terrified if you knew who is sitting behind you, I thought. Aloud, I said still. That's a lot of trust. He must be sure you'd never turn on him. He looked smug. Why would I? I'm finally getting what I deserve, Ari. Respect. Money. Power. Not like when I was stuck with some broke, clingy. His eyes flicked to me, catching himself. Anyway, it's different now. Clingy. My hand tightened around my cup. For a second, the urge to throw scalding coffee in his face nearly overwhelmed me. Careful. I forced my grip to loosen. You ever worry it'll fall apart? I asked softly. That the wrong person will find out what you do for him? He smirked. Like who? His enemies? Please. They don't have the balls to touch me. And if they come near, I have protection. From who? I breathed. Hook. Line. He leaned back, satisfied. You ask too many questions, Arya. Always did. He shrugged. Let's just say, in this city, if you know how to play both sides, you never lose. Both sides. Rafi's text buzzed silently in my pocket. Now we know. Keep him talking. Both sides. I echoed obediently. Ian smiled like a child showing off a secret stash of candy. You really think Faisal is the only one using me? He asked. Please. I sit in rooms you couldn't imagine. Men talk in front of me like I'm furniture. They don't know I listen. My lungs felt too tight. What men? He considered, clearly enjoying the power. You know that Moretti guy, he said casually. The ghost businessman everyone whispers about? Faisal hates him. Thinks he owns the city. He's planning something big to cut him down. And he tapped his temple. I know exactly when and where. It felt like the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. And what will you do with that? I asked, keeping my voice steady by sheer force of will. He shrugged. Whatever gets me the better deal. If Moretti's enemies pay more, why shouldn't I help them? If Moretti pays more, he grinned, shark-like. Maybe I switch sides. You think loyalty is free. Something inside me went very, very still. So you betray either of them? I whispered. For the right price? He leaned in, eyes bright. I'd betray God himself for the right price. My stomach churned. He had no idea that his words were being recorded. Every syllable captured by Xavian's people. No idea he just signed his own death warrant. I glanced at the bracelet on my wrist, at the hidden band beneath, and felt a surge of fierce, scorching clarity. I used to think I'd been unlucky to end up with men like Ian. That something in me attracted cruelty. Now I saw the difference starkly. One man would sell anything, anyone to feel big. The other would burn the world to keep one person safe. Why are you telling me all this? I asked. He smiled, slow and patronizing. Because you can't do anything with it. You're just Arya. You sign papers. You drink your fancy coffee. His gaze flicked briefly to my still flat stomach, not seeing anything, knowing nothing. You're still alone. Something inside me snapped. I'm not alone, I said quietly. He rolled his eyes. Whatever. Listen, since you're in big law now, if I ever need someone to make sure my contracts are bulletproof, I might throw some work your way. Settle you down, you know? Give you something real. He was offering to drag me into his dirty deals, to make me complicit, as if he was doing me a favor. I almost laughed. I'll think about it, I said. He checked his watch. I gotta go. Meeting with Faisal's people. Big things happening. You'll see me on the news soon. He smirked. Try not to be too jealous, okay? Single life doesn't stay glamorous forever. He stood up, tossed a few notes onto the table, and walked out, confident and oblivious. I watched him go, my heart drumming against my ribs. Behind me, a chair scraped nearly imperceptibly. A presence detached itself from the background buzz of the cafe. Got everything? I murmured under my breath. A voice like gravel and smoke answered, low enough that only I could hear. Every word, Xavian said. Beautifully done, my queen. The first time I'd seen Xavian's war room, I thought it looked like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Now, standing in it with my ex's voice playing on a loop, it felt a lot more like justice. He'd betrayed God himself for the right price. Ian's recorded voice sneered from the speakers, slightly tinny but unmistakably smug. I flinched at the sound, even though I'd heard it live just hours ago. Rafi paused the audio with a tap. The room fell blessedly silent. We were in the secure basement level of our building, 2 floors below the penthouse. No windows, just reinforced concrete, humming servers, and a wall-to-wall map of the city dotted with pins and strings that made my lawyer brain itch to color code. Around the long central table sat the core of Xavian's inner circle. Rafi, calm and watchful. Idris, scarred down one cheek, fingers drumming lightly. A woman I didn't know, in a simple black hijab and blazer, eyes sharp above her mask of neutrality. And at the head of the table, leaning back in his chair like a king on a throne, my husband. He looked different down here, colder. The softness I saw in our bedroom, in our kitchen, when he pressed his hands to my stomach and whispered to the child he insisted could already hear him. That man was gone. The one at the table now was the Moretti the city whispered about. Expression carved from ice, dark eyes half lidded as he thought 3 steps ahead of everyone else. But when his gaze flicked to me, just for a heartbeat, the ice cracked. Your ex is stupider than I hoped, he said. I couldn't tell if it was a compliment. He thinks he's untouchable, I replied, crossing my arms to hide the tremor in my hands. And he thinks I'm harmless. That's his first fatal mistake, the woman in the hijab said dryly. I glanced at her. Arya, this is Layla, Xavian said. My chief of intel. She's the reason most of us are still alive. Pleasure, she said, nodding once. I've been wanting to meet the woman who keeps finding my shell companies before my boys do. He touched my cheeks. Sorry. She almost smiled. Don't be. We can use you. The casual we can use you would have insulted me once. Now, it just made me feel like I'd finally stepped into the correct part of the board. Rafi clicked a button on the remote. The big screen on the wall lit up, displaying a web of names and arrows. Here, he said, highlighting one line. Faisal Group. Official. Clean. Under that, Veritas Management, Halcyon Holdings, BM Strategies. My breath caught. BM? That's Ian's company. Front company, Layla corrected. BM supposedly stands for Barya Midtown, but really? Her eyes flicked to me. We think it's your ex's initials. Ian, but. Of course his ego would find a way. BM handles consulting on 2 major projects, she continued. Luxury towers. One in Clifton, one in Gulshan. On paper, they're completely legit. In reality, they're pipelines. Money goes in from Faisal's offshore accounts, comes out as clean sale profits and contractor fees. She zoomed in on one branch of the diagram. Second line. Off these towers runs another channel. Quiet donations to politicians. Security contracts. And this, she tapped a point of light, is where we hit an intersection. I leaned closer. The name glowing on the screen was one I knew very well. Khan and Heir LLP. My firm, I whispered. Your managing partner, Xavier said calmly, has no idea who's actually behind some of his clients. I swallowed. He's greedy, not stupid. If he knew he was moving money for Faisal, he'd be more careful. That's why people like me exist, Layla said simply. To make sure men like him stay useful and ignorant. But Faisal got arrogant when he hired your ex. He wants more control, more speed. That creates leaks. He just gave us one. Rafi restarted the recording, skipping to the part that made my stomach twist. You know that Moretti guy? Ian's voice bragged. Faisal hates him. He's planning something big to cut him down. And I know exactly when and where. Do we know? I asked. When and where? We have pieces, Layla said. For the last month, Faisal's people have been increasing their activity around 3 of our main revenue streams. Dockside warehouses, one of the clubs, and this building. I stiffened. This building. Our penthouse is a ghost, Xavier said. On paper, we don't live here. It belongs to a shell owned by another shell. But the building itself, security contracts, renovation permits, maintenance, those are visible. And recently someone's been asking an unusual number of questions about them. Through BM strategies, Rafi added, we traced a series of routine due diligence requests back to your ex's team. He's looking for a weak spot. I scrubbed a hand over my face. So if you had to guess, the big thing Faisal's planning is either an attack on one of my properties, Xavier said, or a coordinated hit on one of my public-facing operations. Something that sends a message. And I pieced it together slowly. He's the one who'll know the final details. Because he's in the room when people talk. Because they think he's furniture. Exactly, Layla said. I took a deep breath, forcing my brain to shift into the same mode I used when prepping for litigation. Facts. Timelines. Motive. Then we need him to think he's still the smartest man in the room, I said. We need him confident enough to brag again. To tell me more. Maybe even show me something. The man has an ego like a small country, Idris put in. He'll brag. Trust me. Xavier looked at me. You understand what you're suggesting, yes? Yes, I said. He already sees you as leverage, he said quietly. As a woman, he can dangle. If he starts to suspect we're playing him, the first thing he'll do is deliver you directly to Faisal. Gift wrapped. I met his gaze. Isn't that what you want him to try? Silence. You told me I'm the queen. I went on, my voice steadying as I heard my own logic. Queens are dangerous not because they hide, but because they can move where others can't. I'm still single to the world. Just a nice, exhausted lawyer with too many files on her desk and an asshole ex. Nobody sees you when they look at me. That's our advantage. His jaw clenched. You want to use that, I said. So use it. But you don't get to half commit. Either I'm in this fully, or I'm on a plane to anywhere but here and you finish this alone. His eyes flashed. Don't threaten me with taking yourself away. Then don't bench me, I shot back. For a moment, all I could hear was the faint hum of servers, the ticking of the wall clock. My heart hammered in my ears. Then, slowly, he exhaled. We stage an event, he said, more to the room than to me. The boss, back in control. Something public. Something loud. Something that gives Faisal a perfect opportunity to strike that we control from the inside. A charity gala? Rafi suggested. Too messy, Layla said. Too many variables. Too many innocents. A deal signing, I said suddenly. All eyes swung to me. At the firm, I clarified. Khan and Heir would kill for a piece of BM Strategy's legal work. They've been trying to court Faisal's orbit for months. If Ian suggests using us as counsel on the luxury tower deal, it'd be the perfect way to funnel more of Faisal's money through respectable channels. We'd host a signing ceremony. Invite press, investors. Your favorite kind of stage. I nodded towards Xavier. Faisal wants to embarrass you publicly? What better way than to hit something with your fingerprints all over it? A firm that's quietly done work for your shell companies. A wife who doesn't know her husband's real job. It would send a message. Layla's eyes gleamed. And if we know that's what they're thinking, we choose the battlefield, Xavier finished. We wire the firm. Control the security. Turn your glass palace into a cage. My stomach flipped at the thought of my workplace, my relatively normal sanctuary, becoming a trap. I pictured the polished marble floors streaked with blood and nearly gagged. Non-lethal if possible, I said quickly. There are interns, receptionists, clients' kids. This isn't one of your docs. His gaze softened by a degree. You have my word, he said. No unnecessary casualties. It wasn't a promise of no casualties. But we lived in the world we had, not the one I wished for. How do we get Ian to push the deal? Rafi asked. I didn't hesitate. I flirt, I said. Just enough. I let him think I'm tempted by his offer to bring me in. I act impressed. Curious. I nudge him toward my firm. Suggest we be a good shield. Xavier's jaw ticked. Jealousy won't help, I told him. Jealous? No. His mouth curved, humorless. I'm simply making a mental list of bones to break. I rolled my eyes, but my heart squeezed. Focus, Moretti. He drummed his fingers once on the table, then nodded, decision made. Layla, start laying digital groundwork, he ordered. I want eyes and ears in Khan and Hale's entire network by yesterday. Rafi, Idris, begin scoping the building. Entry points, choked points, blind spots. We'll reinforce what we can quietly and leave the rest as bait. He looked at me last. You, he said softly. You'll go to work tomorrow. You'll smile at your boss. You'll take files home and complain about back pain. And when your ex text messages you again, you'll make him think he's winning. I swallowed. And the baby? His eyes darkened. For now, he said, and there was something lethal in his voice, the safest place for our heir is exactly where they are. With you. And with a small army between you and anyone who wants to touch you. He rose, the meeting clearly over. As everyone began to move, gathering devices, murmuring into earpieces, he rounded the table and stopped in front of me. His hand brushed my lower back, warm and grounding, just for a second. To anyone else, it would have looked like a casual touch. To me, it was a promise. We do this fast, he murmured from my ears alone. Before Faisal tightens his net. Before Ian realizes he's in one. And if something goes wrong, I whispered. He pressed his mouth to my temple, the barest ghost of a kiss. Then you press that diamond, he said. And I burned the board. Chunk 5, the signing. On the day everything was supposed to go wrong, the office was weirdly cheerful. Big day, Mr. Khan boomed, clapping his hands as he strode through the bullpen. Remember, people, this is how firms like ours move from respectable to untouchable. I forced a smile as he passed my door. We're ready, sir. Of course you are, Arya. He winked. Our star closer. You charm those BM strategies boys and we'll be swimming in retainer fees. If only you knew. My reflection in the glass wall looked normal. Pencil skirt, blouse, heels. Hairpin half up. Makeup sharp but not too sharp. My bracelet glittered on my wrist. My ring lay snug underneath. Nobody who walked past my office would have guessed that 2 floors below us, a secondary security team loyal not to the firm, but to my husband was watching the building's feeds on a secret loop. That the IT upgrade we'd had over the weekend had quietly rerouted copies of our CCTV streams straight to Layla's servers. That every person who walked into Khan and Hale for the BM signing had their face scanned, matched, and tagged in real time against a database that didn't officially exist. Stop looking like you're about to throw up, Miriam hissed, slipping into my office with a stack of fake files. You're going to spook the clients. I'm fine, I lied. She studied me, eyes narrowing. You sure you're okay? You've been off lately. Almost telling her sat on the tip of my tongue. I'm married, secretly, to someone dangerous. I'm pregnant, also secretly. And my ex might help orchestrate an attack on my maybe mob boss husband during our corporate deal signing. Instead, I said just tired. Big file. Too much coffee. She sighed. Well, hydrate. And maybe eat something that isn't stress crackers. After the signing, She brightened. Speaking of, I peeked at the RSVP list. The main rep for BM is, she checked her phone. Guess who? My stomach dipped. Let me guess. Likes his coffee with sugar and other people's pain. She snorted. Yep. Ian but himself. Plus a couple of Faisal Group people. One of them is Raymond's right-hand man. This is big, Arya. I know, I said quietly. I knew. Because Layla had sent me a profile on every single person walking through our doors today. Which ones were genuine executives? Which ones were security? Which ones had past ties to small-time gangs, smuggling rings, foreign investors? And which ones were almost certainly here to do more than sign papers? By 3 p.m., the conference room on the 21st floor looked like something out of a glossy law firm brochure. Long mahogany table. Screen at the end ready for presentations. Bottled water and coffee arranged neatly. Flags of all the relevant entities on tiny stands. Khan and Heir, BM Strategies, Faisal Group. And invisible to everyone but us. Microphones disguised in the centerpieces. Additional cameras hidden in the ceiling molding. Locks on the doors that could be triggered remotely by a silent alarm. Relax, Miriam whispered as we stood at the doorway, waiting to welcome the first wave of guests. You do this all the time. Not like this, I thought. The elevator dinged. Out stepped Ian in yet another tailored suit he hadn't earned, followed by two men in more understated clothing. One I recognized from Layla's file as Faisal's legal counsel. The other, I didn't know at all. Tall, lean, eyes that swept the hallway too slowly to be just curious. His suit jacket hung just enough to suggest a concealed weapon. Our eyes met for a second. He smiled, polite and empty. Predator, I thought. Arya. Ian spread his arms as if we were old friends instead of exes on opposite sides of a silent battlefield. Mister, but, I said, professional and cool. Welcome to Khan and Heir. We're honored to host you. He laughed too loudly. So formal. You can call me Ian, you know. He turned to his companions. This is Mr. Tariq, Faisal Group Senior Counsel. And this is, well, just call him Nasir. Nasir offered his hand. I took it, my grip firm. Pleasure, I said. His fingers were cool and dry. His gaze was assessing in a way that made my skin prickle. He was the kind of man who'd watch you drown and compliment your swimming technique. Likewise, he said. I've heard a lot about you, Miss Hale. I hope most of it is about my contract drafting skills, I answered. His mouth curved faintly. Among other things. Behind them, more people filtered out of the elevator. Associates, assistants, one junior Faisal Group executive who was sweating already. No sign of the man himself. Raymond liked to send others to do his work until it was time for a photo op. We led them into the conference room, the choreography rehearsed and smooth. Introductions, handshakes, light jokes about traffic. Under the surface, the air vibrated. We took our seats. Mr. Khan at the head of the table on our side, Ian opposite him. I sat to Khan's right, with Miriam beside me. On their side, Counsel, Nasir, a couple of assistants. First of all, Mr. Khan began, all charm. I want to thank you for trusting Khan and Hale with this transaction. We pride ourselves on discretion and excellence. Translation, we like money and we don't ask questions. Tariq gave his rehearsed response. We've seen your work on cross-border deals. BM Strategies recommended you highly. His gaze flicked pointedly to Ian. Of course, Khan said, missing the edge. We're always happy to work with rising stars. The meeting began properly. Spreadsheets and projections flashed on the screen. Talk of floor plans, projected occupancy rates, expected ROI. It was almost easy, slipping into my usual role. I asked precise questions, flagged minor inconsistencies, suggested language tweaks that would make the deal look a shade more legitimate to regulators without tipping off anyone who wasn't looking too closely. All while my skin crawled. Halfway through, as Tariq droned on about construction timelines, I felt it. A soft vibration against my wrist. To anyone else, it would look like my bracelet settling against my skin. To me, it was a coded signal. One buzz, all clear. Two buzzes, unknown variable detected. Three buzzes, immediate threat. This was two. Short then long. Unknown variable. I resisted the urge to look around wildly. Instead, I reached for my water glass, using the movement as an excuse to scan the room. Everything looked normal. Files, laptops, men pretending to be more relaxed than they were. Then my gaze fell on Nasir. He'd moved his chair back a few inches, just enough to angle himself toward the door. His hand rested casually on his thigh, near his jacket. His eyes weren't on the contract. They were on me. My pulse stuttered. Focus. And of course, Ian was saying, once the tower is sold out, we'll be in an excellent position to reinvest in other opportunities. Maybe even expand internationally. He grinned at me. Who knows, Arya? Maybe you'll come with us. Give up this boring office. See the world. I smiled, sweet as poison. I go where the best deals are. He laughed, mistaking my meaning entirely. Nasir's gaze flicked between us, calculating. So, I said, injecting a deliberate note of curiosity into my voice. These projections assume no disruptions to your operation, correct? Of course, Tarek said smoothly. Everything has been risk assessed. You can't predict everything, I said lightly. Market shocks, political instability, strong competitors, unexpected losses. I let the last word hang. Ian shifted in his seat. Moretti's not a competitor, he said before he could stop himself. He's an obstacle. And obstacles get. Tarek shot him a warning look. Nasir's gaze sharpened. Obstacles get what? I pressed gently. Moved? Bought? Destroyed. My phone buzzed in my lap. I didn't have to look to know it was from an unlisted number. Second team in position. L. My mouth went a little dry. Nasir smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You ask very dangerous questions for someone so peripheral to certain conversations, Ms. Hale. I draft the indemnity clauses, I said. I'm never peripheral. He inclined his head. Fair enough. The meeting went on. Pages signed. Initials added. I could feel the tension ratcheting higher with every stroke of the pen. Finally, the last document hit the table. Well, Mr. Khan said, rising. I believe that concludes our formalities. Congratulations to everyone. Welcome to a profitable partnership. Everyone stood, chairs scraping. People began to shuffle, stretching, chatting about refreshments. That's when the lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out. A chorus of startled exclamations filled the room. Emergency lighting snapped on, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. What the Khan began. My bracelet buzzed 3 times. Immediate threat. My heart leapt into my throat. Everyone stay calm, I said loudly, before panic could take hold. It's probably a minor outage. We have backup generators. Miriam, check with building management. I'll. Sit down, Nasir said. His voice had changed. The polite veneer was gone. His hand was inside his jacket now, emerging with a gun that caught the red light and turned it into something hellish. Ian froze, eyes wide. Whoa, what are you doing? Mr. Khan spluttered, color draining from his face. Please, Nasir said, tone almost bored. Don't make me repeat myself. The room stilled. My pulse roared. 3 of Faisal's assistants had moved in sync, closing the blinds, locking the conference room door, drawing weapons from places I didn't want to know about. This was it. This was the hit. Trapped in my own conference room, with my ex, my boss, and a man who might have been sent here to kill the father of my child. Nasir. Tarek hissed under his breath. This wasn't. You talk too much, Nasir cut in calmly. Orders changed. We adapt. His eyes slid to me. And some opportunities, he added, are too good to waste. Chunk 6, queens and pawns. I had always thought that when I was truly afraid, I'd freeze. Instead, everything narrowed. The room sharpened into edges and lines. Where the walls were. How many steps to the door? Who was between me and the nearest solid object? Who had a gun? Who was shaking? Not me, surprisingly. Phones on the table, Nasir said, tone mild. Laptops closed. Slowly. Khan fumbled his phone out of his pocket with trembling hands. Miriam's eyes were huge, but her fingers were steady as she complied. I looked like he might pass out. I slid my phone onto the table with the others. The bracelet sat cool and snug on my wrist. I'd already pressed the diamond. Somewhere in the depths of the building, silent alarms would be screaming. Elevators would be locking. Doors would be sealing. Xavier would be coming. Is this about money? Khan babbled. We can renegotiate. If you think the fee structure. This is not about your fee structure, Nasir said, sounding faintly amused. Do you really think you matter here? His gaze slid past him and landed on me again like a weight. I think you know that answer, don't you, Miss Hale? He asked softly. Every instinct screamed at me to look away. I didn't. I know I don't like guns in my conference room, I said. They clash with the decor. One of the goons snorted. Nasir's mouth quirked. Walk over here, he said. Slowly. I didn't move. Arian, Miriam whispered urgently. Do what he says. I wanted to tell her it would be okay. That help was on the way. That I wasn't nearly as alone as they all thought. But I couldn't risk them being caught in the crossfire of a truth they weren't ready for. Now, Nasir said, voice still calm but with an edge to it that promised consequences. I walked. Each step felt like it echoed. When I reached him, he grabbed my wrist. His fingers wrapped around the bracelet, thumb brushing over the diamonds. My heart stumbled. Pretty, he said. Custom. Gift, I replied evenly. From who? He asked, studying my face. My pulse jumped. Does it matter? Yes, he said. It does. His thumb slid over the specific gem I'd pressed minutes ago. If he noticed the tiny give of the hidden mechanism, he gave no sign. Tell me something, Miss Hale, he said, still holding my wrist. Why does a simple corporate lawyer wear a custom bracelet with encrypted GPS hardware in it? Cold swept through me. You don't just work for Faisal, I breathed. You used to be someone else before this. Military? Intelligence? Everyone was someone else, he said vaguely. What matters is who we are now. He jerked me closer, invading my space. I could smell his cologne, clean, forgettable. The kind of scent you'd never notice twice. Who are you now? He murmured. Because from where I'm standing, you don't look like just a lawyer. Your posture, your eyes, the way you watched the exits when we came in. You've seen real violence before. I forced my body to relax, to slouch just a little. Watching the exits is just good sense when your ex-boyfriend keeps showing up in your life like a bad rash. His grip tightened. Speaking of, he said, lifting his voice. Ian jerked to attention, sweat shining on his forehead. Yes, he squeaked. Nasir's smile didn't reach his eyes. You said this place was a soft target, that their security was minimal, that this would be simple. His gaze flicked up to the corners of the room, the molding, the vents. And yet I'm seeing more cameras than I expected, more subtle reinforcement on the doors. And this one, he squeezed my wrist, wearing a tracker tuned to frequencies our scanners almost missed. Ice water filled my veins. He knew. Not everything. Not yet. But enough to realize something about this wasn't as easy as he'd promised. That wasn't my fault, Ian said hurriedly. I told you they were upgrading security. New clients. New files. I didn't know. You didn't know, Nasir repeated, voice flat. You never know, do you? He let go of my wrist abruptly and turned his gun on Ian. A collective gasp rippled around the room. Please, Ian babbled. Nasir, Yar, we're on the same side. Are we? Nasir asked. Because Mr. Faisal doesn't like surprises. And right now I am very surprised. I brought you here. Ian protested. I got you into this firm. I made sure your money flows. You'd be nothing without me. You are a clerk with good hair, Nasir said softly. Nothing more. Don't mistake proximity to power for power itself. His finger tightened on the trigger. Stop. The word ripped out of me before I could think. He glanced at me. You pull that trigger, I said, heart pounding, and you lose all your leverage. He tilted his head. Do I? Yes. I forced my breathing to steady. Every second I kept him talking was another second closer to Xavier being in this room. Right now you have hostages, lawyers, executives, people he can't afford to let die. He. Nasir's eyes narrowed. Who is he? Don't say his name. Don't give him the power of it. Whoever you're really trying to hurt, I said. It definitely isn't Khan. And it isn't me. He studied me. You assume a lot, he said. I read a lot of contracts, I countered. And I listen when stupid men brag. My gaze flicked deliberately to Ian. Nasir followed it. You think Moretti doesn't know you're here? I pressed. That he won't respond? You think his people haven't noticed the power glitch you engineered? The armed men you snuck into the building? You think he doesn't have half this city wired the way you thought my bracelet was? His jaw flexed. You're trying to flush him out, I said quietly. Force his hand. Force him to come into the open, so you can hit him, too. That's why you accelerated the plan. Why you didn't wait for Faisal's approval. You saw something you thought was weak and grabbed. Silence. Over Nasir's shoulder, Ian stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Arya, he whispered. Who are you talking about? Who's Moretti to you? I looked at him. At the man who'd once told me I was nothing. That nobody would ever want me. That I'd die alone with my files and my coffee and my stubborn dreams. I thought of the way Xavier had knelt in front of me, hands trembling over my stomach like it held the universe. This is where you find out, I said softly. And then, faint but clear, came the sound I'd been waiting for. A distant thud from somewhere below. A muffled shout. The subtle vibration of boots hitting the stairwell. Nasir heard it too. His head snapped toward the door. His grip on his gun tightened. Looks like someone crashed your party, I said. Shut up, he snapped. He grabbed my arm, yanking me closer, spinning me so my back was to his chest. Cold metal pressed to the side of my head. Anyone moves, she dies, he said. Miriam sobbed. Mr. Khan's lips moved soundlessly, maybe in prayer. Ian just stared, torn between terror and something uglier. Open the door. Nasir barked at one of his men. The goon hesitated. Sir, if it's open. The man obeyed, unlatching the lock and cracking the door. For a second, all I could see was the dimly lit hallway beyond. Empty. Then a shape moved, quick and quiet as a shadow. The goon had just enough time to register it before a hand reached around the door, slammed his head into the frame, and dragged him out of view. A muffled grunt. The sound of a body hitting the floor. My pulse skyrocketed. The second goon lunged toward the door, gun raised. He didn't make it. The door exploded inward, slamming into him with enough force to drop him where he stood. He went down in a heap, weapons skittering across the floor. And in the doorway, framed by the flickering emergency lights, stood my husband. Xavier's expression was carved from stone. Black t-shirt, dark jacket, no tie. A gun in his hand, so steady it might have been part of him. Behind him, Rafi and Idris flanked the entrance, weapons already trained on the remaining hostiles. For a heartbeat, everything froze. My lungs forgot how to work. I'd seen him like this before, in glimpses, in stories, but never with the barrel of a gun pressed to my head. Let her go, he said. Nasir's laugh was thin. Or what? Or you die, Xavier said simply. His eyes met mine over the gun's cold kiss on my temple. Hi, I heard myself say, hysterical laughter bubbling under the word. You're late. Something flickered in his gaze. Traffic. Nasir dug the gun in harder. One more step, and I paint your client's nice conference room with her brains. She won't be the one whose blood I'm cleaning off my shoes, Xavier replied. Arrogant, Nasir said. Experienced, Xavier corrected. Behind Nasir, Ian found his voice. Who the hell are you? He demanded. I snapped. This, I said, twisting my head just enough to look at him, is my husband. Silence slammed over the room. Ian's mouth opened and closed. You're married? To him. Surprise, I said. Something like horror dawned in his eyes as dots connected. Moretti. War. Money. Me. No, he whispered. You tricked me. You set me up. You set yourself up, I said. I just pressed record. He lunged toward me, rage overriding fear. You bitch. Everything happened at once. His movement startled Nasir, pulling me slightly off balance. Nasir tightened his arm around my throat, compensating. The gun shifted just a fraction from my temple. A fraction was enough. I drove my heel down on his instep as hard as I could. He cursed, grip loosening. I dropped, letting my knees go out, dead weight dragging his center of gravity off. The gun scraped along my scalp as his arm jerked. A shot exploded, deafening in the enclosed space. People screamed. Pain scorched along the side of my head, hot and blinding. For a second, the room went white. I hit the floor, hands flying instinctively to my stomach. Please, I thought wildly. Please, please. Another shot. Then another. Shouts. A body falling next to me. Strong hands closed over my shoulders, rolling me gently onto my back. Arya. His voice cut through the haze. I blinked up at him. Xavier's face hovered over mine, pale with controlled panic. His hands moved over me, checking, assessing. Are you hit? He demanded. Talk to me. My head, I said thickly. Burns. But I don't think it's just... My fingers came away bloody from my hairline. Graze, I managed. He just ruined my blowout. Relief crashed through his features, so intense it was almost another kind of pain. Idris, he barked. Get a medic up here. Now. On it, Idris called. I sucked in a shaky breath. The baby. He stilled. My hands were still pressed to my abdomen. No new pain. No warmth spreading. Just the usual tightness that came with stress and bad office chairs. I don't feel anything wrong, I whispered. Fear clawed at my throat. But I don't know. His palm covered my hands, large and warm. They're okay, he said, voice rough with conviction he might not yet feel. They're okay, my love. They're strong, just like their mother. Something loosened inside me. Tears slid hot and silent into my hairline. Behind him, I became dimly aware of movement. Nasir's body lay crumpled near the table, eyes staring sightlessly at the ceiling. Ian crouched against the wall, hands over his head, whimpering. Police sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Sirens Xavier had arranged to arrive, just late enough to avoid witnessing anything inconvenient. Arya. I turned my head. Ian was staring at me, face gray. You're pregnant? Of all the things to latch onto. I almost laughed. Yes, I said. His gaze darted to Xavier, to the hand that covered mine. With his, he choked. Obviously, I snapped. Did you think I'd risk creating a human with you? He flinched like I'd slapped him. You played me, he said, voice trembling. You used me. You and your monster husband. My lips curved. No, I said softly. He's my monster. That's the difference. His face twisted. He'll kill me. I held his gaze for a long moment. In the old days, I might have begged for mercy on his behalf. Pleaded even. Told myself that his worst moments were just stress. That underneath it all, he was good. Now I saw him clearly. A pawn who thought he was a king. A man who'd have sold me to my husband's enemies in an instant if it meant saving his own skin or swelling his own bank account. You put a gun in my conference room, I said. You helped a man plan an attack that could have killed me, my colleagues, my child. My voice stayed eerily calm. You lied. You laundered blood money. You threatened people who had never done anything to you. My fingers tightened around Xavier's. I don't get to decide your fate, I said, but I also won't save you from it. His eyes went wild. Arya. Rafi stepped between us, expression blank. Time to go, but they hauled him up, cuffing him with a zip tie that looked almost delicate on his wrists. Where are you taking me? He stammered. Somewhere your lawyers can't find you, Rafi said. But there's Can. He nodded toward Tarek and the remaining Faisal men, who looked like they'd aged 20 years in 10 minutes. There would be deals made, bargains struck, information traded up the chain. But that was a different battleground, one I didn't have to walk onto. For the first time since the gala, I felt tired, bone deep. Hey, Xavier murmured, attention back on me. Stay with me. You're bleeding. I'm fine, I said. Just dizzy. Concussion, he muttered. Of course. Miriam appeared at my other side, eyes swollen with tears. Ambulance is on the way, she said. Oh my God, Arya, I thought. Her gaze darted from me to Xavier and back. Who are you really? She whispered. I opened my mouth, closed it again. One day, maybe we'd have the luxury of telling the truth to the people we trusted. Today was not that day. I'm your friend, I said softly. That hasn't changed. Her chin wobbled. Please don't die. I still owe you lunch. I laughed, which hurt. Noted. The medic arrived then, all efficient movements and clipped instructions. They checked my pupils, pressed gauze to my head, insisted on a stretcher I tried to refuse. Xavier walked beside me as they wheeled me out, close enough that our arms brushed. Are we in trouble? I asked under my breath. Legally? He snorted. Your boss is going to spin this as Khan and Hale bravely cooperating with ongoing investigations into organized crime. We'll make sure the right evidence lands in the right hands. Faisal will have bigger problems than you. And the footage of your ex bragging about betraying everyone will keep him busy for a long time. I exhaled slowly. So we're one. He considered. This battle? Yes. The war. He shrugged one shoulder. Men like Faisal always grow back somewhere else. But he won't be doing it here. Outside, the late afternoon sun was blinding after the emergency lights. They loaded me into the ambulance. Xavier climbed in beside me, ignoring the medic's protest. Family only, the man said. Xavier reached for my hand, threading our fingers together. I am her family, he said quietly. The medic studied our joined hands, the way I relaxed against him despite the pain, the way his thumb brushed over my skin like he was counting the seconds of my pulse. He nodded once. Fine. Don't get in my way. As the doors closed, shutting out the chaos of flashing lights and curious onlookers, I turned my head toward him. You know, I said, voice thick with exhaustion and whatever they'd given me for pain, if one more person asked me if I'm still single, I might actually scream. A corner of his mouth lifted. I'll have posters printed. Very much taken by a terrifying man. I suggested. Protected by a monster who loves her, he corrected. Warmth flooded my chest, pushing back the lingering chill of the conference room. I rested my free hand on my stomach. Hear that? I murmured. Your father's ridiculous. He covered my hand with his. Our heir, he said. So softly I barely heard it over the siren. Born of a queen who walked into war and never forgot who she was. My eyes burned. Queens, I mumbled, sleep tugging at me. Real queens don't walk alone. He leaned down, pressing his forehead to mine. Exactly, he whispered. And you, Arya Moretti, will never be still single again. The ambulance sped through the city, carrying us toward whatever came next. For the first time in a very long time, I let myself believe that next might actually exist. For me, for him, for the tiny heartbeat between us. Not a pawn, not a prize, a future. And this time it was ours.